Now before we even get into the nitty-gritty and all the specifics, I want to clarify who this video is for. This one is really geared toward folks that have a $99 budget for a new bait casting reel. They've got the SLX on their list, they've got the Spool LFS on their list, and they want a little bit more feedback before they make a purchase. In the past year or so, I've put up 2 first impression / unboxing videos. One for the SLX, that one went up first because I bought that first. Then I got the LFS, so that one went up as well. And I said at the very end of that one that I was going to compare them to see if there was a preference that I had between the two, because I was planning on probably getting another one at some point in the future. Well, since I've had them, I've used them, I've got a final verdict that I'm going to share with you all today regarding which one I think is better and probably worth your money if you're in the market for a $99 bait cast reel and you've got these 2 on your list. Let's talk a little bit about each, at least from my experience. Now remember, this is all my preference. Preferences are subjective. In other words, what I look for in a reel may not be what you look for in a reel, and that's fine. That's why I'm not just going to tell you which one I think is better, because that doesn't mean anything to anybody. That's just what I think. I'm going to give you some things, or at least some reasons why I came to my conclusions. You can use that information to decide from there what makes the most sense for you. So first, let's talk about the SLX. So Shimano came out with the SLX not too awful long ago. $99 reel, pretty compact, pretty small, really kind of designed for everyday use. No real specific kind of target audience per se. It looks good. I mean, let's be honest. It looks good. It feels good. I'm a very big fan of these handles. I like these handles. They call them the Power Grip. I really do like that as far as like the ergonomics. It feels good. You know, the plate itself, you know, it's got a good shape. I like to palm my reels pretty much all the way up here. It feels good in the hand. There's really not much else to say about that. It's light too. It's a little lighter than the LFS, but I mean, you expect it to be light because it is a little bit smaller than some of the other options out there. I got the 6:3 ratio. They do make them in a few other ratios, but 6:3 is pretty much, you know, right in my wheelhouse, so it's kind of like an all-purpose, kind of like right there in the middle, so to speak. As far as the drawbacks or otherwise the negatives I have to say about this reel, there's 2 things specifically that I want to mention with you guys today. The first being that this thing is noisy. It can be noisy. It's not noisy right now because I've gone in and cleaned it. But when I was using it, there would be times where it was just making a lot of noise, either on the retrieve, on the cast, or both. So with all the noise going on, I was concerned. Frankly, I thought I had broke something. So what happened, basically, I went to a local tackle shop that does repair services and reel maintenance. I had some other reels I was already taking to get serviced. So I brought the SLX with me, and I had asked the gentleman that does the repairs. I said, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It just makes a lot of noise. I don't know if there's anything. I just don't know because I'm unfamiliar with the reel. Could you take a peek just to see if you find anything that's probably going to require some type of repair? The individual looked it over, got it back to me, basically said everything looks fine. In fact, he said it looks super clean, as if, you know, it had barely been used. And I said, to some extent, that's true. I haven't used it much, but I was concerned just because I had some excessive noise. So of course he told me just to keep an eye on it, or keep an ear on it specifically, and if it got worse, or if things like literally got to the point where it mechanically felt wrong, to bring it back and we'll take a look. So that being said, it never got to that point. I haven't had to try to get any type of like warranty or service stuff, or any repairs or replacements or anything, but I will let you all know what I found to be making a lot of that noise. So the brakes in there, it's got the tab, so it uses the spinning physics brakes as opposed to the magnetic brakes like you see on the LFS. Inside of that little pocket in there, so let me go ahead and just pop it open for the folks that are looking at the footage here. So inside of here, so those little tabs, so these tabs right here, now I tend to run at least 2, probably 2 or 3 tabs on my brakes since I've owned it, and it seems to do just fine. But the little, I don't know what the word is, but the part in here, so the inside of this ring, those where those tabs, they drag against that to actually do the, you know, the braking itself. So over time, if you don't keep that clean, some buildup can build up inside of there, and it can cause some excessive noise to the point where you're casting, as you're free spooling out and casting a lure, for example, things can chatter in there and make a bunch of racket. So you got to go in there, you got to clean that out, and keep that nice and ready to roll. So if there's any type of excessive noise as you're casting out, that's the first place to look. Now I also went in and I checked out inside of the reel itself just to make sure the gearing, there was nothing funky going on with the gears. I've got some footage when I took it apart. I'll lay that over my talking right now. And I looked in there just to make sure that there was nothing that obviously needed grease that didn't have it. I went in and I put a fair amount of grease. The last time I opened it up, you know, I checked some of the bearings that are in there just to make sure there wasn't any obvious signs of anything that could be getting loose or otherwise needing a replacement. Didn't see anything. At this point, it's been cleaned, it's been checked. I've gone through it. I've had other sets of eyes on it. Really nothing to suggest that there's anything wrong with it. I'm just not used to having this noisy of a reel. It's not a bad thing. I'm not saying it should turn you away, but you'll see various reviews online that talk about noise. I read them, I saw them, and then you'll have plenty of folks that say no issues like that at all. But this sucker has some noise to it, has some chirp to it. Just make sure that things are clean. Get you some grease on the gears when you need to. I feel like as long as you're doing those things, you'll be fine. The other thing I noted about the SLX that I do want to mention today is the fact that I don't think it plays well with heavier lures. Now when I say heavier, I mean a ½ ounce or higher. So all your big swim baits, your big glide baits, anything along those lines, your fat jigs and stuff like that, I don't think, or at least in my uses, it did not work well with the SLX. I was chucking around swim baits and glide baits. Although it can obviously do it, it just didn't feel comfortable. I feel like I was putting it under unnecessary strain or stress, and I just kind of didn't want to keep doing that. So I've now reserved it for, lures that are at least, right around an 1/8 of an ounce. I don't think anything lower than that would be super efficient to cast, but somewhere between the 1/8 of an ounce and up to a half, that's kind of, the sweet spot. So a 1/4 ounce, 3/8 of an ounce, all those kind of things I have no problem throwing the SLX, and I would recommend for anybody that has a lot of lures or presentations in that realm, you'd probably be just fine. Then of course we have to switch over to the Lew's Spool LFS. Obviously it's got some stylistic differences just because it's a different brand, but overall I would say again the ergonomics are pretty solid. I've never had really a time where I thought that it wasn't comfortable to hold and palm during normal use. It does have a little bit of a higher ratio. This is a 6:8 to 1 as opposed to the 6:3 to 1. Not really what we're comparing, but it is worth noting that they're not the exact same ratio, so please keep that in mind. This one has 10 bearings. I know that there's a lot of bushings as opposed to bearings in the SLX, and that could be a weight and or cost cutting measure. I don't really think it's that big of a deal. I don't count bearings. Some people get real caught up in bearings. I don't, so I can't really give you feedback on that. It is what it is. But beyond that, we've got the magnetic brakes here on the Lew's as opposed to the spinny physics on the SLX. Not a whole lot going on here really, other than the actual fact that it looks different. I think the handle's a little bit longer, not by much, a couple millimeters probably, but it is a little longer. The grips are different. They've kind of got like this flat paddle style versus the power grips have a different style. I feel like the power grips are much more comfortable, but I really don't mind these. It's like a solid rubber type of situation. They're comfortable. I don't slip on them. No real concerns or complaints in that department. Now, keeping in mind, and to be fair, I have not owned the LFS as long as the SLX. So some of the noise stuff, for example, I've talked about with the SLX. Maybe I'll have some noise things pop up with this. I have no idea. I haven't had it that long maybe, or if it's going to have any type of issues like that, they just haven't popped up yet. It's still smooth. I haven't had to open it up. I haven't really done anything other than some basic oiling. It's really easy to get into. Not a whole lot of fancy stuff to really kind of go into. It's kind of basic, and I like basic, so that's not a problem. If I had to point out any type of criticism regarding quality when it comes to the LFS here, I'm going to point you in this direction. So this is the little dial, so this is obviously the magnetic brake dial. The numbers in the letters, so it has maximum to minimum here. Now, since I palm it and I have it right here in my hand as I'm using it, my hand has pulled some of the lettering off. So that ink was printed right there directly on the plastic. At this point where my hand rests the most, it's pretty much, wearing away. It's not going to be there much longer just through normal use. Not that big of a deal. It's not like a game-changing experience, and it's not like I'm going to not know where I need to turn it when I need to twist it during use. But for the most part, I feel like that's something that could, turn some people off. Again, not that big of a deal for me, but it's just something to be aware of. That's why I wanted to point it out today. Alright, so we've talked about the specifics with the reel. We've looked at some of the positives, some of the negatives. But what does T think? In other words, what would be the one to choose between these two if you've got that $99 budget, you need a new reel? Which way might you go? Well, I'll tell you today in full confidence, without any level of bias. I bought both of these full retail. There's no endorsements or anything along those lines. Nobody's asking me to do this. I've got no reason to lie when I say, if I had to choose between one of these two, I would pick. It depends. So here's what I mean. What I've found out through my use is that between these two reels, I would use them and have been using them for two different purposes. Let me explain. So for my needs and my purposes, the SLX has become my go-to when it comes to presentations and lure styles where you're doing a lot of casting and retrieving. So think of like your crankbaits, your jerkbaits, your lipless crankbaits, anything along those lines. I feel like this is a great all day. You can sit around and just chuck it and wind it without any sense of like fatigue. It's light, it feels good, it's fun to turn. The handles are comfy. So if I'm throwing crankbaits all day, I'm going to set it up with this. However, if you want to throw some heavy stuff, You want to throw some spinners, you want to throw some jigs, you want to chuck some glide baits, some swim baits, pretty much anything that's heavy, that's got a heavy gauge hook. You want to make sure that you got some confidence when it goes to setting that damn hook. I would say the LFS does a better job. It's a little bit heavier. It feels a little bit more sturdy. It's just kind of got that kind of, rugged durability thing going on. I mean, it just has that feeling that I like to have if I'm pitching, if I'm flipping, if I'm throwing heavy topwaters and I got to fight something out of some brush or something along those lines. I feel like the Lose is going to be able to do that a little bit more efficiently than the SLX. I'm not saying the SLX can't do that. I'm not saying I couldn't use them for the exact opposite purposes of what I just explained. I'm saying in terms of my preferences and where I'm comfortable. Again, if it's a moving bait with treble hooks, for example, SLX all day. If it's a single hook, something I'm throwing into some muck or some grime or some wood or whatever, I'm going with the LFS. Just my preference, but I feel like they serve those two different purposes. So of course it's not very exciting because you probably came in here and clicked because you wanted to hear what T had to say and was going to throw one in the trash maybe and only keep one of the two. I truly believe it really just depends on what you feel like you want to use that setup for that you're trying to piece together with either one of these reels. All that being said, I can't honestly sit in front of you all today and say I would only get one or the other if I had to choose between the two. Again, I'm going to recommend you to think about what purpose you're planning to use them for and then use that to judge which one makes the most sense. So in other words, you're just matching the right tool for the right job at that point. But if you pressured me for whatever reason, I don't know why you would, but let's say I had to pick one. I just had to pick one. If I was going to get another reel, remember what I said in the LFS video, I was thinking about getting another one, so I needed to compare them to figure out which one I liked more, because I'd probably get another one. Well, since I bought these two reels, I have bought another reel, but it wasn't one of these. I had opportunity to get another reel. I had used both of these. I kind of knew what I liked and what I didn't. And I figured I didn't want either one. So what I did was I got one of these. I got a Corrado 200. Why? Well, for the most part, in my opinion, and this is again my opinion, I felt like I had both qualities that I enjoyed in both of these reels, and I found it in one reel. In other words, remember I said I really like these grips. Like I kind of like how the Shimano feels. I like the SLX just kind of in hand. So, I grabbed the Corrado and it felt similar. Like it has the same grips to my knowledge. I believe they're the exact same. It had everything I liked about the feel of winding this reel, but it was just more refined. Again, it's a little bit pricier, so it makes sense. You're looking at a $180 reel versus a $100 reel. However, it's a little bit beefier. It's not as compact. Obviously, it's got a little bit different shape. It kind of feels, at least in my left hand, more like the LFS. It's kind of got that kind of rugged weight to it. I mean, it feels like it's been built well. It's got quality materials. It feels like it's going to last. But the best thing about the Corrado is the sense that I feel like I could use that for anything. I could throw crankbaits all day on the Corrado and probably be just fine. I could also, and have been, throwing jigs, spinners, and heavy stuff like I would with the LFS, and everything worked out just fine. So I guess that's kind of an important distinction to make. If you're stuck more or less at that $99 or $100 range, let's say, I feel like you got to look more specific to what technique you want to run. That doesn't mean you can't use any technique with any reel, but for me, I want to find something I'm comfortable with, and that's the observations that I've made after using both of these in front of me here. At this point, I feel it's safe to conclude that if you're looking for something that has true versatility, in other words, can throw all types of weights, all types of presentations, day in and day out, you may not find that in the $99 range, or at least I did not find that with these two options here in front of me. I had to go up a little bit higher to get the Corrado to finally feel as though, like, hey, I can pretty much throw anything I want on here just because I do have a little bit more adjustability, and I felt like, just the quality's there. You're spending a little bit more money, so you're going to feel a little bit more quality. I feel like that's very true, at least from my experiences. So all that to say, in conclusion, or in summary rather, both of these reels are great. I don't have a regret with getting them. I feel as though it was money well spent. I enjoy using them. I still use them. I have no reason to suspect that I'm going to stop using either one. So I'm not going to try to persuade anybody watching that you should not like either one of these. I don't think that it's possible, at least for me, to objectively say that one of these reels is better than the other. Again, I'm going to look at what job I'm using them for, what presentations I want to use them for, and I'm going to let that decide which one I'm going to pick up next. All that being said, if you have any questions or comments or anything specific to either one of these reels that I did not address in this clip specifically, you can leave me a comment, shoot me a message, ask me anything if you need to. I'm not going to tell you how to spend your money like I just said, but I will let you know any feedback that I can give you if you feel like it'll help you make a decision. Y'all, I appreciate y'all watching. You're going to continue to see these two being used in my content moving forward. So as things happen, let's say one kind of just breaks down on me out of nowhere, I'm going to take this video down and I'm going to slander the hell out of the company that made the one that broke. But until then, I'm going to leave this one up so you can decide. As usual, As always, I appreciate y'all watching. Take care. I'll see you on the next one.